Hey! There's a tape recorder here.
See what's on it.
This is Mason Quinn, Garden Stewardship, Archives, Log Number 2. I believe I have made a significant find in the last remaining Blockbuster video. Having journeyed there with my supervisor, Mason Maddie, and my companion from Artifacts, Mason Quinn, we stumbled upon something remarkable, the Kandarian Demon. Tied to the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, this demon is strange, silly even, yet utterly terrifying. I've brought it back here for analysis where I can study it undisturbed. It was here that I looked at the subtitles. They speak of strange incantations. Kunda, Estrata, Mantos, Irgrets, Gut, No, Veratus, Kanda, Molunag, Deramento. That last part translating as Monster Menagerie. Welcome to Monster Menagerie, brought to you by the Paladin Archives. My name is Mason Quinn. Quinn's the name, Mason's the title. I'm here to guide you through our Year of Demons. It's been a long road, but we're nearly at the end. And how best to bring in the penultimate demon of the year than to hail to the king.
Hail to the king, baby.
Or rather, the king's greatest nemesis. Perhaps we'll take a look at Ash himself in a different episode. What do you think? Today, though, we welcome in the spooky season with a look at the Watcher in the Woods, the Kandarian Demon. I have spent the majority of 2024 looking for a demon that truly embodied the essence, the gravity, the gravitas that the name demon promises. We've certainly had some good shows. Pazuzu and Valak definitely had a fear factor on their side. Alistair and Crowley definitely had class. And Morrigan and Abaddon, well, they definitely stole my heart, if not my soul. But this is different. I stumbled upon what might be the greatest threat I could ever hope to put up against the Paladins. Something ethereal, otherworldly, powerful on a level the rest only dream of. And, well, I can't even show you a proper picture of him. Unlike Crowley or Morrigan or even Pazuzu, the Kandarian Demon doesn't really have a physical form. Until he does. Ugh. Look, I know it's not technically accurate, but let's do something less disturbing. There we go. Bruce Campbell makes everything better. Before we get too deep in the weeds with Evil Dead's demon, I just want to remind you that we're nearly at the end of the year. The Kandarian Demon is our penultimate demon. That means next month, November, is the last demon of the year. So, what about December, you may ask? Well, my curious companion, much like last year, I'm bringing in a cadre of demon VTubers to give their takes on the best demons in fiction with our end-of-the-year roundup. You won't want to miss it, so make sure you hit that like button and subscribe so YouTube, hopefully, tells you when the next episode is out. Okay, let's get started with... almost forgot. Maddie said you cannot start an episode on the Kandarian Demon without saying... the proper magic words, so just hold on one second. Klatu Varata Nick Nev Klatu Varata Okay? I think we're good. Yeah. Let's get started. Groovy. The story of the Kandarian Demon is one that predates mankind. I think. To be honest, the lore is a bit lurky, like always. I'm basing my analysis on one singular instance of the subject, namely the 1987 film Evil Dead 2. Now, there was an Evil Dead before that, but this movie basically overrides it, I think. I mean, they cover the same story beats, just with a slightly different plot and 30% less tree relations. But then the movie after it, Army of Darkness, kind of just forgets that anyone else was even with Ash on that fateful night we fought the demon and was sent back into the past. So the story will definitely be different depending on who you ask. So again, what I can scrape together from just the movie Evil Dead 2 is what I'm going by. The story of the Kandarian Demon is inexorably intertwined with the story of the Necronomicon Ex Mortis.
Roughly translated, Book of the Dead.
We know that the demon had some presence in Kandar, which I guess was a city/castle in England, held by a Lord Arthur, but not that Arthur of England. Tormented by the demon, it was prophesied that a great hero would descend from the sky to free them from the horror of the Deadites, which are basically zombies created by the Kandarian Demon. Fast forward 700-ish years, and an archaeologist locates the book and brings it back to a lonely cabin in the woods to decipher. Recording his efforts, he documented how just reading the book called upon the demon and gave it a home in the woods that surrounded the cabin. After taking both him and his wife, a curious and amorous Ashley Ash Williams brought his girlfriend Linda up for a weekend away.
What do you say we have some champagne, huh, baby? Huh?
Apparently he was aware of the cabin and was counting on the owner not being there. So after a little romance, a little dancing, and playing the tape recorder the archaeologist left behind, Ash set himself up for the worst day in his life. For you see, even spoken by a Panasonic tape recorder, the words of the Necronomicon were enough to summon the demon once more. What followed was a slew of possessions, of Ash, of the others to come by the cottage, heck, of the trees and random objects around the cabin. This thing tortured Ash and killed off the other people one by one until the archaeologist's daughter managed to read the pages that showed how to banish the demon. But therein lies the kicker. You need to understand two big things about the end of this movie. First, the spell only claimed to be able to banish the demon, not destroy it. And second, spoiler, Ash doesn't win. Here's the thing about the Kandarian Demon. You see, I usually like to point out that my analysis is going to be based around a single movie, show, or game. In the case of this particular demon, I have to limit it to one. Evil Dead 2 rewrote the lore of the Evil Dead, Army of Darkness rewrote the lore of Evil Dead 2, and the amazing Ash vs. the Evil Dead cherry picks what is canon from all three movies, making a mishmash of lore that is inconsistent at best and downright self-contradictory at worst. So, as stated before, we're just going to go with what we can see in Evil Dead 2. The Kandarian Demon does so much. It's a bit difficult to list it all. I think, to make it easier, we should break it into two sections. You see, while the Kandarian Demon isn't a Deadite, they control and summon Deadites, like a puppet master, injecting them into their unwilling hosts. So it only makes sense, to me, that I list the powers of the demon and the Deadites. And, well, power 1 of the Kandarian Demon? Summoning Deadites. Obviously, there's a library's worth of canon on the Deadites and the Kandarian Demon, but based solely on what we see in the movie, here's what we know. First, they're separate from the person they possess. We know this because Ash manages to regain control. We know they apparently are from hell, or at least dragging their victim's soul someplace to torture them, as Professor Raymond Noby alluded to in his Deus Ex Deadite warning. They're strong enough to toss a human aside with one hand, like most demons in fiction. There's a few different weights given for Ash among various online sources, but we know he's 6'1". Average male weight for 6'1" is about 180 or so tossing people around with one hand is nothing to scoff at. We do see, however, that the chains, padlock, and the cellar door in the cabin are too tough for Mama Deadite to break, so I guess temper that strength a little bit. Oh, they're also very resilient. You need to do more than just shoot them or stab them. You gotta go full-on dead space on these things. Dismemberment, and then dismembering the dismembered pieces. Heads will continue to bite, hands will continue to claw. Deadites have the ability to appear unaltered and undamaged, mimicking the appearance of their victims pre-infection. Going along with this, they also have access to their victims' memories, which, combined with appearing normal, allows them to fool new prey. When it comes to the Kandarian Demon directly, they have a few powers to choose from. Despite the insinuation that they're immaterial and ethereal, we can see them crash through windows, knock down doors, and, well, clearly their victims see something. They react as if they're seeing something horrible. Editor Cred from the future here. I forgot one little thing. Ash was actually able to hide from the demon in that last scene we just saw, which means the demon isn't all-seeing. All Ash did was go down to a little fruit cellar and just kind of hang out and go, ooh, and it completely lost him. So that was it. Oh, also, make sure you're treating yourself nice today, okay? Bye. I'm a little surprised by their lack of strength, even in this form, though. Glass is an easy one, but doors are hit or miss. On top of this, it doesn't move terribly fast either. If we look at this scene from the movie, the demon goes from the bottom of this set of steps to the top in 1 second. I counted the frames. If we assume the boards that make up these steps are about 6 inches wide, then it crossed a distance of 42 inches, 7 boards times 6 inches, in 1 second. That's 3.5 feet per second, or about 2.3 miles per hour. That's a little over 1 meter per second for my non-American friends out there. Not exactly impressive. Even I could outrun the demon at that speed, but maybe it was taking its time on that run. A little later, we see it chase Ash once he's ejected from the car. The average human runs between 10 to 15 miles per hour, and the demon is sorta keeping pace. But watch how Ash's figure shrinks on screen. That means he definitely is outrunning the demon. The front porch of the cabin is roughly about 6 feet long. The demon takes half a second to clear the first step onto the porch all the way to the door frame. That means at this point it's going 6 feet per half second or 12 feet per second. That comes out to a little over 8 miles per hour or 3.5 meters per second, so still not terribly impressive. For comparison, that's just a little bit faster than multi-gold medalist Michael Phelps, who, just to clarify, is not a runner. He's a swimmer. What I'm saying is, the demon isn't terribly fast, but that's not necessarily a weakness. Certainly it's exploitable, but I think it might be doing that on purpose. You see, if we look at the demon's MO, we see a pattern throughout this and the other movies, and the show too. The Kandarian Demon loves to play with its food. It could easily snap necks, stab victims, but it tends to play, to stir up fear, to torture. And clearly, despite us, the audience, not seeing what it looks like, it has some physical appearance when it chases people down, which must be terrifying. Back to its abilities, one big one is the ability to induce hallucinations. When Ash is alone in the cabin, he starts to lose it. At one point, he ends up strangling himself, though from his perspective, it's his reflection that's doing it. At a different point, he's assaulted by the decaying frame of his recently decapitated girlfriend, smashed over and over into the window, only to find that he's dreaming. And yet, that exact decaying frame is what attacks him next, for realsies. Lastly, I think it's worth noting that Ash is able to harm the demon once it's forced into a physical form, though how much damage he's actually doing is up for debate. At the very least, though, we do know that daylight makes the thing a little shy. It gives up its possession of Ash when daylight hits him, one of the only breaks the poor guy gets in the entire film. Well, that was a section and a half. Let's look now at how Ash and company actually acted on this information. Much like the powers section, we're going to need to divide the strategies section into 2 parts, one for the demon and one for the Deadites. Remember, these things work hand in glove. Where you find one, you most certainly will find the other. The first Deadite we come across is Ash's girlfriend, poor Linda. Ash, in a moment of desperation, decapitates her with a shovel. A pretty good shot, if I'm honest, but in the end it only delays her. After a burial, she manages to dig herself free and come after Ash, but now the trouble has been made double. While the head is loose, biting Ash's hand, the body is free to grab a strangely floppy chainsaw and go after him. It's only when the head and body are utterly destroyed that he's safe. Ish. As mentioned before, while Ash didn't actively use this in the movie, he was very aware that daylight saved him. It might have been a good technique, but we saw that even when he had all day, the demon chose to cut off his escape and torture him. In fact, it's arguable that he was still in his head during this time and was messing with him, causing him to lose the entire day beside the broken bridge. Now that shotgun came in pretty handy when facing off against the Deadites, but remember, don't aim for center mass. It's not guaranteed, but shots to the head seem to give the most favorable results. Now onto the demon itself. They did very little. Again, the sunlight caused it to retreat back into the darkness of the forest, but beyond that, they had very few avenues of attack against the Kandarian Demon itself. True, Annie was able to use the pages of the Necronomicon to manifest it and banish it into the past, but that didn't actually defeat it. In fact, the closest thing I saw to beating it was, well, losing. Hear me out. When Ash arrives at the cabin with his girlfriend, there are no monsters. Presumably, had Ash not played the tape, they would have had a lovely weekend. But the moment that tape uttered the words to summon the demon, boom, the Kandarian Demon rushed the cabin and took Linda. It's hard not to draw a correlation between those two events, which leads to me believing that waiting out the demon is completely possible. But more on that in our next section. Obviously, for the Deadites, our paladins are going in hot. Shotguns and chainsaws seem to be the weapons of choice, but I'd imagine that other firearms, and if we're desperate, bladed weapons, could put a Deadite down for good. The key is going to be teamwork here. I'm thinking that if a group is facing off against the Kandarian Demon, we need at least 2 people on immediate defense, our physical disciplines, the anti-heretic and anti-freak paladins, to be actively working the room. Deadite in, Deadite down. While those guys are holding the front line, we need at least 2 spiritual disciplines. Those are our anti-demon and anti-spectre paladins working on ways to end the root cause. Now, I'm convinced the book has the secret to the Kandarian Demon's defeat hidden amongst its pages, and other parts of the Evil Dead franchise either hint or confirm this. Again, the lore is cherry-picked, so we're only going after what works in Evil Dead 2. That said, Ash didn't utilize anything sanctified or holy against the demon. I'd be curious what a simple crucifix or some holy water could do, and beyond that, I mean, we've got sealing rites, wards, and even straight-up exorcism. The problem here is we have so little information on this one. I don't see the Kandarian Demon being easy by any means, but I do see its ultimate threat being kind of fluid. Since I mentioned Ash needing to play that tape before, I want to touch base on a certain strategy paladins utilize. You see, in our world, when we have a zombie or similar undead outbreak, the Order's most effective method is containment. As the saying goes, death is not a superpower. Zombies are actively decaying, falling apart day by day. The best way to take them out is to contain them, keep new blood from getting in, and wait them out. I think a similar strategy could be employed for the Kandarian Demon itself, depending upon the context of our encounter. We get a large group, probably with the assistance of the BDA, that's the Bureau of Demonic Affairs for those not in the know, to cordon off the surrounding area. Then we send a team or 2 to retrieve survivors, acquire the book if possible, and otherwise just keep the demon from feeding or infecting anyone else. If we look at the movie's timeline, it doesn't take long for the demon to go dormant. Annie Nobi, the professor's daughter, arrived at the cabin fully expecting her father to be there translating the book. While we don't know the exact time frame between her father arriving at the cabin and Annie arriving, it couldn't have been long. While one group maintains the perimeter and waits out the demon, the other begins the work of sealing the book. Personally, since we know pages can be removed from it, I'd say remove each page individually and seal them in separate locations. That is, assuming the book can't be destroyed. My job within the Paladin Order is to field incoming calls and relate information back to Paladins that they need for their cases. Are they facing off against a Nosferatu or a really sick vampire? What's the best way to disentangle a spirit from a television remote? That one happened, that one is real. Often, when they're after their quarry, I write up a full report for them, all of which is summarily tossed into the nearest trash can, except for my threat level. That's basically a Paladin shorthand for how dangerous a particular creature is. The scale goes from 1 to 10. Ones are nothing to write home about. A 1 might be a miscreant trowel that has become enchanted by your musical collection and rearranges your old CDs and vinyls while you're asleep according to the number of musical instruments involved. Annoying, but easy to deal with. A 10, however, those are existential threats, something beyond worrying about. If a threat level 10 were truly encountered, even I wouldn't be informed about it. It'd be cruel to let anyone know because, well, it's just better to let them live out their last few moments as happy as they can be. Now, normally this is where I do a long, extended joke about a level 10 and how truly horrifying they can be, but I'm not sure I need one for this episode, because while it's certainly not a threat level 10, the Kandarian Demon is scary enough without the joke. The Kandarian Demon's threat level is rather fluid. I have to weigh what I see it doing against Ash versus what I can imagine it doing. Its potential is frankly terrifying. Even within the silly movie it originates from, it's a horrific creature. It can possess just about anything: trees, clocks, deer heads, and yes, people. It can cause hallucinations. It can utilize deadites to impersonate people. It's insidious. Oh, and on top of it all, and I can't stress this enough, Ash doesn't win. In fact, he barely survives, and not through anything of his own doing. Had Aubrey, the professor's daughter, not been there, Ash would be toast. Were the demon's shortcomings innate, or simply because it was focused on Ash? Or perhaps it only focuses where the book is? The movie doesn't answer these, so I can't assume it's the less dangerous option. If I send a paladin a report, it's better to overstate the danger than under. If we really want to help put this in perspective, let's look at all the demons and vampires we've had so far. How would they fare if dropped into a scenario versus the Kandarian Demon? Obviously, some of the weaker ones, like Nandor or even Dracula himself, would go down in one night. They couldn't even rely on daylight to save them. But if we head to the upper end of that spectrum, Alistair, Morrigan, Marceline, Ceres Victoria, things get a bit murkier. Remember, it's not just about killing deadites and reading a book. It's about the demon's potential beyond a physical fight. Sure, Alistair and Morrigan could definitely survive for a while, depending on how many hosts the Kandarian Demon could turn into deadites. Marceline the Vampire Queen seems good on paper, but she might lose her cool. Remember, as powerful as she is, she got stuck under a tree in the middle of the day because she dropped her umbrella. Our toughest subject to date has been Ceres Victoria. She has the powers, she has the will, and she has the arsenal and bloodlust to withstand a deadite onslaught for quite a while. She's practically built for zombie killing, but she's susceptible to mental trauma. Deadites can impersonate the people she cares about, mess with her mind. The demon could potentially cause hallucinations that force her to relive the worst parts of her life. Even beyond that, don't forget the Kandarian Demon can't be hurt by any methods the movie depicts. And Ceres definitely can. The real issue is the potential the demon has. Sure, we can get an entire stewardship's worth of paladins to quarantine an area, evacuate the victim, seal or nullify the book, etc. But if just one or two paladins fall or otherwise get turned into deadites, the whole thing could potentially blow up. The Kandarian Demon would have access to all their memories and be able to impersonate them perfectly. If even one deadite were to escape the quarantine, infiltrate the stewardship, or heck, even just a local parish, it could be disastrous. And worse, paladins might not think to scan or otherwise use their spiritual gifts to detect a deadite amongst them. All it would take is one slip-up, one mistake. Then the Kandarian Demon has access to troves of forbidden paladin knowledge, tactics, infrastructure, and more. In the end, though, without the book, the Kandarian Demon can't really be harmed. Even then, Evil Dead 2 only shows that it can be banished. Can it be contained or exorcised? Maybe, but I have nothing to support that. The Kandarian Demon isn't like the other demons we've looked at this year. It's more a force of nature than anything else. I'm really torn on this one. I think I can safely label this demon a threat level 6. At least, depending on what lore we choose to cherry pick from the various parts of the Evil Dead franchise. Though, it could even be a threat level 7. Something beyond what paladins have ever faced. It can potentially build armies of darkness. It's a world-level threat. It's uncontainable. Without the book and clear knowledge of what to do, it's untouchable. The Kandarian Demon is something you survive, not something you defeat, and for that reason, with great hesitation, I label the Kandarian Demon threat level 7. It's with a little less deliberation that I assign the Kandarian Demon their demon class. As I've explained before, demon classes are merely a shorthand to know what kind of demon we're facing, with no relevance to its danger. In this case, I'm still torn a little bit. The demon is ethereal for 99% of the film, but it does have a physical form. Plus, the possessions it takes aren't really to keep it anchored to this world, they're to create more deadites. So, in the end, I think this one lands squarely in Class 3. Paperwork time. And what paperwork it is. Dispatch stewardship or hire paladins. This should be considered a full-class demonic event. If possible, an entire stewardship should be mobilized. First response team should utilize anti-freak, anti-heretic tactics to protect anti-specter, anti-demon paladins as they lay wards, traps, and attempt to secure the source of the demon's power. Acquire the book. If possible, utilize Angel Tear Extract, aka the blue gel, to attempt to neutralize it. Utilize white vestments to limit possession exposure. Extract survivors, erect quarantine around the demon's location. Imperative. All paladins involved or coming in contact with those involved should be subjected to regular spiritual scans to verify they have not been compromised by deadites. Standard anti-freak protocols to be utilized against deadites. Dismember and destroy individual body parts of the infected. I've looked over some scary subjects before, but I've never felt the need to push the scales like that. I get it. The Kandarian Demon is from a horror comedy. Its lore is unreliable, and the hero chosen to face it is a doofus of the highest caliber. But even with all that, the demon is just so terrifying. The movie, not so much. I mean, even the physical representation of the Kandarian Demon is a little silly. But what it's capable of, that is scary. I went back and forth forever on this one, actually assigning a level 7 to something. I guess in the grand scheme of things, like assigning that to a fictional demon isn't a big deal, but man, if that were to actually happen, like with the real paladins, that would be huge. But what did you think? Did I overhype the Kandarian Demon? Should I have used different lore? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and while you're there, why not recommend next month's demon? Especially because next month is the last demon. That's right, November means the end of analyses, but not the end of our time with these demons. We're taking all these demons we've looked at this year and bringing them together for an end of the year extravaganza. I have some special demon VTuber friends who will be stopping by to help me sort these demons out, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out. Also, if you're enjoying what we do here at the Archives, why not check out what inspired it all? Our debut novel, The Paladin, is releasing soon, and you can read the first 3 chapters at our website. While you're there, you can check out other short stories in the Paladin universe, see some amazing art, and even see which Paladin discipline you are. It's a bit like finding out your Hogwarts house. Links down in the description. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you had a good time, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe, and maybe share this video with a friend. But for now, I have to go. We've got a Halloween party to plan, and I'm being put on security. For some reason. Oh, it's not really to keep out werewolves and vampires, it's more just to keep them from sneaking into the costume contests. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's hiding out there.
Kren, did you say the words exactly as they were written?
Well, maybe I didn't say every single tiny little syllable, no, but basically I said them, yeah, basically.